So these last few lectures we have been looking at convergence of iterative schemes for solving linear algebraic equations. Starting from the basic equation for where the error evolves. So we had this iteration scheme. We had this iteration scheme to solve Ax equal to b, and A was written as S minus t, and we said that the error, which is defined as iterate xk minus the true solution x star, this evolves according to E k plus 1. This is a linear difference equation. It evolves according to this linear difference equation. Now from this we abstracted a linear difference equation problem. We said essentially we have to look at equations of this type, and Z0 is initial condition. Z0 is the initial condition, and then we wanted to come up with the way of analyzing asymptotic behavior of the solution as k tends to infinity. So we came up with analysis based on eigenvalues. We came up with a condition that if rho b is nothing but max over I, lambda I, that means if lambda I are eigenvalues of matrix B, lambda I are eigenvalues of matrix B, we find out its absolute value. Well, eigenvalues can be complex, so we find the absolute value, and rho b, this is called as spectral radius. This is called as spectral radius, and we said that, or we showed that the necessary and sufficient condition, if rho b, that means spectral radius of matrix B, is strictly less than 1. We said that if the spectral radius of matrix B is strictly less than 1, then the sequence Zk, norm of that, will tend to 0 as k tends to infinity. So, and from this we again connected to our original problem. We said, which means that if spectral radius of S inverse t is strictly less than 1, then this is necessary and sufficient condition for convergence of error. Okay, for convergence of error, the error of between the true solution and the guess solution will diminish to 0 if this condition is satisfied. Okay, I am just doing a recap of what we have done till now. So from this point we again had some difficulty because we have to compute eigenvalues. So we said, well, eigenvalue computations are difficult, and then we used one more result to come up with a sufficient condition. So we said that spectral radius of matrix B is always less than or equal to any induced norm of matrix B. Spectral radius of matrix B is less than induced norm of matrix B. What is induced norm? Induced norm, this is induced norm, induced by the norm defined on the range space and the domain space. So this norm of a matrix is nothing but amplification power, or something like a gain of a matrix, if you can think about it as a gain or amplification power. So if, and then we came up with a sufficient condition that if induced norm is less than 1, obviously spectral radius is less than 1 and convergence is guaranteed. If induced norm is greater than 1, we cannot say anything. Okay, if induced norm is less than 1, we are sure. So we had another condition that if if induced norm is strictly less than 1, then spectral radius of B is strictly less than 1, and then this implies that asymptotically norm this means asymptotically norm of iterate zk or difference equation zk will go to 0 as k goes to infinity. So this we can say without actually having to solve it. Okay. Now in particular we talked about infinite norm or one norm, which are more convenient for doing calculations. Okay. And now based on this I wanted to derive some results which are even more simpler. I don't probably have to even compute the norm. I can compute what is called as diagonal dominance. So in my last lecture I talked about diagonal dominance. So I wanted to further cache on this result that if the induced norm is less than 1, then of course the spectral radius is less than 1. Induced norm is very easy to compute, particularly 1 and infinite norm, as compared to computing the spectral radius. So checking whether a particular iteration will converge or not is very easy. Okay. Now let's move back to the thing that we have done in my last lecture. So this was overview of the entire stability arguments that we have been giving. Well, I wanted to derive something more specific from the previous result. So we come back here, we are trying to solve for Ax equal to b, and A has been split as S minus T. So for Jacobi method, in particular I analyze Jacobi method. Okay. For Jacobi method, S is equal to, well, we are also writing S as, we are writing A as L plus D plus U. This is strictly lower triangular part of A, this is diagonal part of A, and this is strictly upper triangular part of A. So S is equal to D and T is equal to minus L minus U. And then I defined the concept of strict diagonal dominance. If you take sum of absolute values of elements of matrix A in a row except the diagonal element, and if that sum is strictly less than the diagonal element, then the matrix is called as diagonally dominant matrix. Okay. Just to give you a simple example, well, you just write any matrix in which, let's say this is my matrix A. This is my matrix A. This is the diagonal, these are the diagonal elements. These are the diagonal elements here. Just have a look. If I take absolute sum of this, it's smaller than this. I take absolute sum of this, smaller than this. Okay. I just look at this matrix. I look at its diagonal elements. Okay. This particular matrix will obey this condition. This is a strictly diagonal dominant matrix. Just look at this. Just look at this. This is 2 plus 4 plus 3 plus 1 is always less than 15. Okay. Same thing here. Okay. 5 plus 3 plus 1 plus 9 is less than 23. So I am taking absolute values. Okay. So for this particular matrix, can you calculate what is going to be Jacobi matrix, which is what is S inverse T? Can you calculate that? Just do it. What is S inverse T? Well, mind you again that Jacobi matrix, when you actually do computations, you never compute S inverse. You do row by row calculations. Okay, this is for analysis. This is for getting insights. But what you will realize is that you just look at the diagonal elements, you look at the sum of the off diagonal elements, you can say whether the iterations are going to converge or not. Okay, which is very, very powerful result. You don't have to actually solve it. And this is true for 5 cross 5, for 10 cross 10, for 1000 cross 1000. If this condition holds, iterations will converge. Okay, so you are guaranteed convergence if this condition is satisfied. So what will be S inverse T? What will be Jacobi matrix? Let's call this Jacobi matrix. S inverse T, or for Jacobi matrix S inverse T, what will it be? This will be 0, it will be minus 1, 1, 0, 2 divided by minus 5, minus 5, minus 5. Then this will be 1, 0, 3, minus 2, 2 divided by 9, 9, 9, 9. Okay, minus L minus U. Then what is this? 2, 4, 0, 3, minus 1. This divided by 15, 15, 15 and 15. Okay. Then the next one is 1, minus 5, minus 3, 0 and minus 9 divided by minus 23, minus 23, and the last row is minus 1 by 5, minus 1 by 5, 1 by 5, 0, 0. Okay. Now, what will be the infinite norm of this matrix? You take absolute of row sum. You take absolute of, so absolute of this plus absolute of this plus absolute of this. Okay, absolute of all these things, all these numbers. Is it always going to be less than 1? It's always going to be less than 1 because this matrix is strictly diagonally dominant. Okay, the denominator, in the numerator this will appear. Okay, actually for a diagonally dominant matrix, what you know is that this divided by norm AII, this will be strictly less than 1. This will be strictly less than 1. You can see here, you add absolute of each one of these rows. Okay, if each one of them is less than 1, the maximum is also going to be less than 1. What does it mean? Spectral radius of this matrix is strictly less than 1. So if A is diagonally dominant, the Jacobi matrix which you get by S inverse T has spectral radius strictly less than 1, which means Jacobi iterations will converge without having to solve it for arbitrary initial guess. Very, very important, for an arbitrary initial guess. Okay, so any initial guess I give, even if it is completely wrong, my iterations will converge to the true solution. Okay, if diagonal dominance condition is met. So you can just check diagonal dominance of a matrix very, very easily, and then you know whether the solution is going to be obtained or not. Okay, that is straightforward. Now there are many more results of how do you analyze the convergence behavior, and all of them I am not going to prove. I have stated those results here in the, and I am just going to state them and show you how to apply them, and the proofs for each one of them, or at least most of them, some of them you can derive yourself, for most of them are included at the end of the chapter, that is end of the notes in the appendix. Okay, I don't want to go over it in the class. You got the philosophy of how it is done, and you have to look at the proofs in the appendix to understand more of this, because we cannot spend time on this beyond a certain point. As long as you get the philosophy, it's fine. Now, what are the more results? There are some more results which exploit the structure of matrix A. One structure that we exploit is diagonal dominance, right? The other thing we will show is that if matrix A is symmetric, positive definite, okay, if matrix A is symmetric and positive definite, then Jacobi and Gauss-Seidel method converges. Also, you can show that if matrix A is diagonally dominant, Gauss-Seidel method will converge. Okay, the proof is little more involved, and you should look at the proof given in the appendix. I have given details of the proof in the appendix. So, if matrix A is diagonally dominant, Jacobi iterations will converge. It is also true that if matrix A is diagonally dominant, then Gauss-Seidel iterations also will converge. Okay, so you just have to check for diagonal dominance. You know that Gauss-Seidel iterations will converge, and in fact, a heuristic is that most of the times Gauss-Seidel iterations converge faster than Jacobi iterations. Okay, so if you know that a matrix is diagonally dominant, your preferred choice of using the method should be Gauss-Seidel method, not Jacobi method. Okay, there are other theorems. So, the first theorem that you should know about convergence of iteration scheme is that if matrix is diagonally dominant, A matrix, okay, then Jacobi method as well as Gauss-Seidel methods will converge to the true solution. Okay. The next result is, by the way, remember this is a sufficient condition. This is not a necessary condition. What does it mean? That if this condition holds, Jacobi and Gauss-Seidel methods will converge. If this condition doesn't hold, even then these you can't say, if this condition doesn't hold, you cannot say anything about convergence. You have to go back and check something else. You have to go back and check spectral radius. Okay, so this is only a sufficient condition. If this happens, you are guaranteed convergence will occur. If this doesn't happen, we do not know. We cannot say anything. Okay, so this is a sufficient condition, not necessary condition. The other result is, so the second result I would say, the first result was very important result. So this symmetric positive definiteness seems to be something very nice. It seems to help us everywhere we go. Okay, and I'll just show you how you can, now you might start saying, well, I have been given this matrix, A, and only in very special cases this A will be symmetric positive definite, isn't it? A is a square matrix. Huh? I am not talking about now least square where we had a tall matrix. I am just talking about A is a square matrix, and my given problem, the problem which is given to me is such that A is not symmetric positive definite. Okay, but I know that Gauss-Seidel method or Gauss-Seidel method will converge. Okay, sufficient condition for convergence is that if the matrix in my problem is symmetric positive definite. Is there something that I do to solve this problem, to convert this problem into symmetric positive definite matrix? Very good, excellent. I just pre-multiply this equation with A transpose. So this gives me A transpose A. Okay, I don't have to solve for Ax equal to B. I can instead solve for A transpose A is equal to A transpose B. Okay, I am guaranteed convergence. So I am using my theory to change the problem in such a way that I am guaranteed to get converged solution. Okay, I am going to solve this problem using Gauss-Seidel iterations, making use of this theorem. Okay, how do I make use of this theorem to modify my calculations? I pre-multiply both sides by A transpose. This becomes a symmetric positive definite matrix. Okay, now if I apply Gauss-Seidel method to this matrix and this problem, this transform problem, I am guaranteed to get a solution. This solution is obviously a solution of, if it is a solution of this, it is also a solution of this. We have no problem with that. So I could solve this transform problem instead of solving this problem. I get a symmetric positive definite matrix here. Okay, I am using theory to modify my calculations. I'll just give you an example here. I will start with, so I want to solve for Ax equal to B, and my A matrix is 4, 5, 9, 7, 1, 6, 5, 2, 9, and my B vector is 1, 1, 1. Okay, let's say I want to solve this by Gauss-Seidel iterations. Okay, so well, what I'll do is this is not a solution procedure, this is analysis. Okay, from analysis what I know is that if I write this matrix as if I write this matrix as A matrix, if I call this S and if I call this as T, okay, if I call this as S and if I call this as T, then doing Gauss-Seidel iterations is equivalent to, then my S inverse T will be 4, 0, 0, 7, 1, 0. This is my S inverse T. If I were to use the raw matrix A, and in this case the spectral radius of S inverse T turns out to be 7.3, which is strictly less than 1. Okay, if I use Gauss-Seidel iterations are not going to converge, because if I just use the raw matrix A, that matrix is neither diagonally dominant. Just check, it is diagonally dominant? It is not. Is it symmetric matrix? It's not a symmetric matrix. Forget about positive definite. It is not symmetric matrix. But if I know this little bit of information, okay, then okay, if I do this transformation, that is A transpose A X is equal to A transpose B, okay, then this A transpose A matrix, it turns out to be 90, 37, okay, and this A transpose, this is A transpose A transpose B becomes 16, 8, 24. And now if I apply Gauss-Seidel method to this matrix, to this equation, transformed equation, then the S inverse T, spectral radius of S inverse T, it turns out to be 0.96. Okay, so for the transform problem, I am guaranteed convergence of Gauss-Seidel method. This is a symmetric matrix. Just see this symmetric matrix. It's a positive definite matrix by definition. A transpose A is always positive definite, even if A is not positive definite. We have seen this several times. Okay, so this is positive definite matrix, symmetric matrix. Convergence is guaranteed. Just pre-multiplying both sides by A transpose, I can ensure that I will get convergence by iterative method. Okay, so in the case where obvious things like diagonal dominance are not there, if you want to ensure that you get convergence, just pre-multiply by A transpose both sides and then use Gauss-Seidel. You are guaranteed convergence. Very, very powerful result, yeah? Huh. Always diverge. So that spectral radius should be less than 1 is necessary and sufficient condition. It's necessary. If the convergence occurs, spectral radius should be less than 1. If spectral radius is less than 1, convergence will occur. Okay. So, but that is not the case with the norm. If induced norm is less than 1, convergence will occur. But if induced norm is greater than 1, convergence may or may not occur. You do not know. Okay. That is not the case with spectral radius. Spectral radius is the absolute measure which will necessary and sufficient condition for. Okay. So it's possible to transform. There are more results of this type. Again, I am not going to go into the proof. For relaxation method, well, we have this result. For relaxation method, what you can show again is the proof is again given in the appendix. You should go and look at it. Have a look at it. If omega is chosen between 0 and 2, well, actually for relaxation method we want to choose it between 1 and 2 because we showed that omega equal to 1 is equivalent to Gauss-Seidel iteration. So we want to choose it between 1 and 2, but in general, if omega is between 0 and 2, okay, we are this is a necessary condition for convergence. Okay, so you cannot choose omega. You know how to choose omega. You have a guideline here. Okay, so this again, remember, this is only a necessary condition. This is not sufficient. If you choose less than 2, that doesn't mean convergence has to occur. But if convergence occurs only when you choose omega is less than 2. And well, this necessary condition, this is result 3, and the necessary condition becomes necessary and sufficient conditions if extension to this theorem is another result, that if this is for an arbitrary matrix, okay, this is for an arbitrary matrix. Now if A is symmetric and positive definite, so if matrix A is symmetric positive definite, okay, then this condition, necessary condition, becomes a necessary and sufficient condition. Okay, now you know how to transform the problem which is originally not symmetric positive definite to symmetric positive definite matrix. Okay, so what I want you to the take home message is that all these results, all these theorems are very, very useful in shaping your calculations. You should know how to make sure that convergence occurs. Convergence is very, very important. And then whenever you are not sure in a arbitrary large scale problem where you are not sure about A matrix how it's going to be, if you want to use iterative schemes for solving Ax equal to B, it's better to use a relaxation method in which you transform the problem, because in general relaxation method will converge faster than Gauss-Seidel method. I'll just show you in a very small example that Jacobi method is the slowest to converge typically. Gauss-Seidel method is faster, and if you choose omega properly, then the relaxation method will even converge faster. Okay. Now, how do you choose omega such that you get very, very fast convergence? It's very difficult to tell a priori. You probably have to compute eigenvalues, but that is not desirable. You don't want to really compute the eigenvalues. So you have to develop some kind of experience in beyond the point. You have to use all these theorems and understand the theory and then develop experience to tweak with the calculations. That's very, very important. Okay, so I'll just show you one simple example. This is taken from Strang's book, but it is very, very illustrative. Very simple problem. So I want to solve, and such a simple problem, of course, you don't need any of the iterative methods. 2 cross 2 systems, you can solve it by hand. So my A matrix is 2 minus 1 minus 1 2. Well, you will say that this is Jacobi and Gauss-Seidel will converge. Why? Symmetric, diagonally dominant. Okay. So anyway, but that is not the point. The point is the Jacobi method, S inverse T will be 0, half, half, 0, and the spectral radius is equal to half. Okay, and for Gauss-Seidel method, S inverse T, this turns out to be 0, 0, half, 1 by 4, and spectral radius is S inverse T. Okay, the spectral radius is given by this. Actually, spectral radius, maximum magnitude eigenvalue of S inverse T, is an indicator also of the performance. Okay, now there are two aspects. It should be less than 1. Okay, now how much it is less than 1, how close it is to 0, that also matters in terms of the rate of convergence. Whether the convergence is guaranteed or not is decided by whether it is strictly less than 1. Okay, that is a stability criteria. The performance is given by how much it is less than 1. Okay, so this method, Jacobi method, in which spectral radius is half, okay, converges slower than the Gauss-Seidel method. Okay, because the spectral radius here is 1/4. In fact, you can almost, if you start doing calculations, you will see that one step of Gauss-Seidel will be almost equal to 2 steps of Jacobi. Okay, so the Gauss-Seidel can move much faster because the spectral. This is, you cannot show it for every matrix. There is no proof that Gauss-Seidel always converges, but in general, Gauss-Seidel converges faster than, and the reason is typically spectral radius of S inverse T for Gauss-Seidel is less than. Okay, that is the reason. Now, what if I formulate the relaxation method? So you can almost show that because of this, one GS iteration is equivalent to 2, one Gauss-Seidel iteration is equivalent to 2 Jacobi iterations. Okay, because spectral radius in this case is even smaller. Now for relaxation method, S inverse T turns out to be inverse of this matrix, 0, omega, minus omega here, 2 inverse 2 into 1 minus omega, 0, 2 into 1 minus omega, and of course we should choose omega between, we want to choose omega between 1 and 2. We want it to be greater than 1 because if it is equal to 1, it is nothing but Gauss-Seidel method. Okay, we want to be greater than 1. Now actually, now for this simple case, 2 cross 2 matrix, you can actually find out what is the best value of omega that will enhance the convergence. What is the optimum value? Okay, for different choices of omega, you will get different spectral radius. Okay, we can actually find out which value of omega will. This is just again to tell you, emphasize this is only to get insight. Okay, in real problem, I am not going to compute optimum omega by doing some. I have to give a guess for omega. Okay, so if you use some properties of matrices, then you know that lambda 1 and lambda 2, if these two are eigenvalues of S inverse T, then that is equal to determinant of S inverse T, which turns out to be, in this case, if you take determinant of that, it will be 1 minus omega whole square. Okay, and you know the other property, you know this property, multiplication of eigenvalues of a matrix is same as determinant, and then what is the other property? Trace. So lambda 1 plus lambda 2 is equal to trace of, so this will turn out to be 2 minus 2 omega plus omega square by 4. Now if you plot this, that is, if you plot S inverse T versus omega, if you plot spectral radius using these two relationships, you can find out lambda 1, lambda 2 and the spectral radius, and if you plot this, you will find that, well, getting the optimum is not very difficult. If you plot this, you will find that the optimum value, if you plot this, the optimum value for which the spectral radius is minimum, you will get a point where you will get a minimum value of the spectral radius. Okay, so that value turns out to be omega optimum is equal to 1.07. Okay, and the spectral radius of S inverse T for this omega is 0.07. Okay, I am skipping some steps, you can see here in the notes. That's not important. What I want to point out here is that if you are able to choose omega properly, then this is 0.07. So we had three situations. Jacobi method, then Gauss-Seidel method, and relaxation method. The S inverse T spectral radius in this case was half, this was 1/4, and this is 0.07, which is almost 1/4 of this. So we said one iteration of Gauss-Seidel was 2 Jacobi iterations. What can you say about one relaxation iteration? It's like one relaxation iteration is like 4 Gauss-Seidel iterations, okay, and almost like 8 Jacobi iterations. So relaxation method can converge even faster. Typically values close to 1.1, 1.2 are used. This is thumb rule and not substantiated. I think Strang gives some clue that you can use it close to 1.2, but it's hard to say generally what value of omega will make conversions very, very fast. Okay, but so the tricks that you should use is, first of all, make sure that either the matrix is diagonally dominant. Check whether matrix is diagonally dominant. If it is not, okay, to ensure convergence, you should pre-multiply both the sides by A transpose. That will make it symmetric positive net. I am guaranteed convergence. Okay, but I want convergence faster than Gauss-Seidel. Gauss-Seidel is better than, in general, Gauss-Seidel is better than Jacobi, so I will apply Gauss-Seidel, and I can make convergence faster even going to relaxation method. So probably I should use all these tricks and use relaxation method to enhance my convergence. That's how I should proceed with arranging my calculations. So this brings us to end of this analysis. What is important here is that there are many take-home messages. One of the things is that eigenvalues is one of the prime tools for analyzing behavior qualitatively, asymptotically. I don't have to solve. That is the beauty of this tool. I don't have to solve the problem. I can just look at eigenvalues, or I can, in this case it turns out finally I can just look at diagonal dominance. I can see whether convert the problem to a symmetric positive definite matrix. I am guaranteed convergence of my iterative scheme. Very, very powerful result. In fact, eigenvalues are used for convergence analysis in engineering literature in many, many, many ways. Okay. Well, most of you I think have done the first course in chemical engineering on process control, right? And in process control, if you, well, you may not have connected it to the eigenvalues in the first course, but actually what you can show is that if you write a differential equation for a local linear differential equation for evolution of the system dynamics, then the so-called roots of the characteristic polynomial are nothing but eigenvalues of certain matrix which governs the system dynamics. Okay, and if eigenvalues are on the left half plane, and then you know what was nice thing about eigenvalues there, or roots of the characteristic polynomial? You don't have to solve. You just look at the roots, whether they are lying in this half of the plane or this half of the plane. You can tell how the system is going to behave asymptotically without having to solve. Okay, same thing is here. Without having to solve, I can tell whether my iterations will converge or not. Okay, also using necessary sufficient conditions, I can go and modify my problem to make sure that convergence will occur. Okay, this is more important than the algorithm per se. Algorithm you will learn to program it, or nowadays I think these algorithms might be available on the net, you might download it. Okay, algorithm might be very well written, that doesn't mean the convergence is going to occur. Okay, you should know why convergence occurs and then make sure that you transform the problem in such a way that convergence occurs. That is important. Okay. So this brings us to end of this. Now there are two more things that I need to do. Well, because we missed one lecture, some timetable is disturbed, but I'll try to make up for it. I'll try to cover gradient based or optimization based iterative methods for solving Ax equal to b. Okay. So now, till now I formulated iterations in one particular way by splitting the matrix, and in fact row by row calculations, not really splitting the matrix. The way the iterations were derived were doing row by row calculations. Okay. My next aim is going to be, instead of doing that, can I iteratively solve this problem? Well, can I solve, if I want to solve Ax equal to b, okay, well, if I take a guess solution, the true solution is, let's say, x star. Okay, and if xk is my guess solution, then obviously ek, now my ek has a different definition. Ek is b minus a xk. Okay, this is not going to be 0. When this is equal to x star, it will be equal to 0. If xk is equal to x star, this is equal to 0. The way I want to solve this problem is minimize objective function, scalar objective function phi is defined as E transpose E, that is Ax minus b transpose Ax minus b with respect to x. Okay, I don't want to solve this. Well, you will say that if you apply the necessary condition for optimality, you will get dou phi by dou x equal to 0. That will give you A transpose A x. If you apply this condition, dou phi by dou x equal to 0, then you will get A transpose A x is equal to A transpose B. I don't want to solve this. I don't want to go by this route. I want to go iteratively. Okay, I want to guess x0, and by some method I want to go to x1, then I want to go to x2, and so on. And then I want to see whether this iteration converges. We are going to use what is called as the gradient search. Okay, one of the fundamental methods in optimization, gradient based search. So we'll look at gradient search, and then there is one more method called conjugate gradient search, which we'll look at next. Okay, that is one thing which I want to do. After having done that, we have talked about iterative schemes for solving Ax equal to b, and then we move on to a very, very fundamental issue, matrix conditioning. Which problems are inherently ill conditioned, which problems are well conditioned? How do I classify and say that this is an ill conditioned problem, whatever I do I am going to end up into some trouble. This is a well conditioned problem. If I am getting wrong solution, I have made a mistake. Okay, so well conditioned problems, absurd solutions, you have made a mistake. Ill conditioned problems, absurd solutions, well, you can't do much. How do you classify ill conditioned from well conditioned is the next thing. That will bring us to end of this module.